What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Only one game left in the season, given that it's by far the biggest game of the year across all sports. You know we need to have some action on it, especially with fantasy done for the season. So today we're going to walk through how I kind of see the game playing out, what I think the best and worst matchups are, what picks I've already made as a result. Underdog is doing 2 promos this week, one for all users, one for only new users. Everyone is going to get the no sweat token, meaning you can make a pick. Even if it loses, you're going to get your entry back as a bonus credit. So again, everyone getting that one. Then anyone that signs up this week is going to get a Travis Kelce free square. So if you sign up, you can have Travis Kelce higher than 0.5 total yards. So as long as he gets 1 yard, that part of the entry will hit. And that's, of course, just on top of the regular promo, up to $1,000 in bonus cash with your first deposit. On top of that, anyone who signs up using promo code FFA this week will get my draft and in-season rankings for free this season. So to be clear, if you sign up and you make a pick using promo code FFA, you'll get a deposit bonus up to $1,000. You're going to get a Travis Kelce free square, a no sweat token, and my draft and in-season rankings for free. Imagine not signing up for that. So plenty of incentive to sign up right now. And you're actually allowed to play in a lot more states than I think a lot of people think. So reference the graphic on the screen to see if you are eligible. Anyone in the yellow or the green can play. So even if you think you can't do it in your state, if you are yellow or green on the screen, you can. All right. So how do I see the games playing out? Close. I mean, I think everyone kind of sees this game's playing out close. The line is held steady all week. I haven't seen it move at all. I think it opened at Chiefs -1.5. I think it still is at that right now. Total's been around 48.5 all week. So, you know, on the higher end of games we've seen this season, but I don't think anyone's expecting, a 37-38 shootout. I think most outcomes here have one of the two teams winning by a score, maybe around 3 points. And yeah, the total being around into the 40s, maybe into the low 50s. My model thinks the Eagles should be 2-point favorites. But as I've said a few times, my model is a notorious KC hater. So personally, I think the 1.5 point spread in favor of KC is correct. That's probably the direction I would lean. But again, I just think the game's going to be close, 1-score game at the end. Regardless though, I'd be surprised if either side really jumps out to a big lead early on. And I'd also be surprised if either side did anything risky early on to kind of decrease their chances later. KC has won 17 straight 1-score games, and both teams rank top 5 in limiting turnovers on offense. Both sides know that this game is going to play out very close. And so doing something really risky early on, taking a shot downfield, especially if it's not completely wide open, it just really increases the chance this week that it's going to really set you back. On a normal week, maybe it's fine, right? Both these teams are really good. They have explosive players. They can score quickly. And so against a normal opponent where they're like, listen, we think we can stop them when we're playing defense, we think we can score easily on offense. Maybe you do take that shot early on. You try and win the game quickly. In this game, when you know the other side has a great defense, and so points are going to be tough to come by, when you know the other side has a great offense, you don't want to be taking those chances early on because that can set you back really, really far, again, in a matchup like this. And since Kansas City is already a super conservative team this season, even against teams that they've clearly been better than, again, it would just be shocking if either one of these teams came out overly aggressive. On the Philly side, KC has an exceptionally strong defense and a great defensive coordinator. Steve Spagnuolo, just exceptional at timing blitzes. So while Kansas City is actually slightly below average in quarterback pressure percentage, they're top 5 in time to pressure. So especially with how good the Philly offensive line is, it's not like Hurts is going to be running for his life every single play. But when Kansas City does decide to send pressure, it's likely going to be well timed, going to be more effective on average than the Eagles have seen so far in the playoffs. On the ground, I don't think anyone can stop Saquon Barkley, but The Chiefs do have the 11th most efficient run defense. They've allowed the 5th fewest runs of 10 plus yards, 7th fewest yards per rush play, 7th fewest yards per carry after contact, 8th fewest rushing yards per game. And they've done so while stacking the box at the 12th lowest rate. In other words, they have a really good, really strong run defense, but so did the Packers, and Saquon still had 119 rushing yards against them. Saquon's going to get his around 20 to 24 touches, mostly on the ground. And even though the Chiefs have been great at limiting big plays, it takes one missed gap for Saquon to bust a 60-yard touchdown. Through the air, I do think there's one matchup we can kind of exploit. For years now, Kansas City has been really, really good at limiting wide receiver production. Everyone thinks in fantasy that, it's a great matchup against Kansas City because Kansas City is a great offense, going to score points, everyone's trailing against them late, and so you either get garbage time points or you just get an elevated passing play rate later on, and that's good for wide receivers. But for years now, they have been a very negative matchup for wide receivers because they're great at defending the position. That's continued this season, but only on the outside. Kansas City was the second worst matchup overall for outside wide receivers, but the single best matchup for slot wide receivers. They also are the fourth best matchup for tight ends overall, second best matchup when tight ends are split out wide. So when the Eagles do decide to throw it, which they're a very run-heavy team, right? They're going to run a ton with Saquon. They're going to have design runs and quarterback scrambles with Jalen Hurts. But when they actually have a pass attempt, it is likely going to go at an elevated rate to their slot wide receiver and to Dallas Goedert. Those are going to be the two that benefit the most. Now, they should use A.J. Brown a lot more than they do in the slot, but his slot rate has been dropping every season he's been on the Eagles. 2022, it was at 26%. 2023, it was at 21%. This season, it's below 19%. So less than 1 out of every 5 routes is run from the slot for A.J. Brown. Instead, Devonta Smith's slot rate is 56% of his routes, and Dallas Goedert ran 45.5% of his routes from the slot. In fact, even across 3 fewer games, Dallas Goedert still ran 32 more routes from the slot than A.J. Brown. So to be clear, A.J. Brown, freak athlete. He can get it done on one play. He can win against anybody, especially if Kansas City is going to run a decent amount of man coverage. A.J. Brown, great against man coverage. But this matchup does favor Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert over him. So my lean is towards those two, with a stronger lean towards Dallas Goedert. If there was like one player in the passing game that you wanted to look at for a big game for the Eagles, I think it's Dallas Goedert. But again, one of Devonta Smith or Dallas Goedert is probably going to have a really strong game, and I think both are going to have good games. So those are my first 2 picks. I took both personally, 4.5. So Dallas Goedert higher than 4.5 receptions, Devonta Smith higher than 4.5 receptions. They do technically eat into each other a little bit because it's not like they're going to have 30 pass attempts in this game. We don't see the Eagles drop back a ton. And so if you don't feel comfortable taking both, again, my lean is Dallas Goedert. But I do think the matchup tilts their way in the passing attack. And I also really like Saquon Barkley, higher than 1.5 receptions. So we're really just loading up on these guys here. Nothing about the matchup says definitely have to take it, right? The matchup says lean towards Smith and Dallas Goedert. Nothing in the matchup says take Saquon. It's really just looking at his season as a whole. I'm thinking 1.5 receptions is far too low. He's extremely likely to get to 2 receptions. In the 17 games, including the playoffs, that Jalen Hurts played more than 12 snaps, Saquon had 2 or more receptions 13 times. In the 4 games that he didn't, they won by 20, 28, 6, and 32. In fact, in the 10 one-score games that Jalen Hurts played in this season, Saquon had at least 2 receptions in 9 of those 10. This game is played in a dome, so we don't have any sort of weather concerns. And that's not only from a reception standpoint. There's no weather concerns being like, oh, we're going to get a snow game, we can get a rain game, a wind game, where they're both going to lean towards the ground, limit total plays, increase rushing play percentage, which decreases pass attempts. It's in a dome, so we can still get a normal amount of pass attempts here. So I get definitely that scary taking higher on 3 Eagles players' receptions. But understand that it's an extraordinarily condensed passing attack for Philly. Only 6 total players on the Eagles received a target in their first playoff game, and only 5 players combined over the last 2 games have received a target. Over the last 2 weeks, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, and Kenneth Gainwell are the only 5 Eagles players to receive a target in both games combined. So while taking higher on 3 Eagles players is going to feel a little bit scary, their projections only add up to 10.5, right? We're taking higher on 10.5 receptions for 3 of the 5 players who are actually going to receive a target on this team. And realistically, it could end up being 4. There's a world where Saquon doesn't leave the field. Kenneth Gainwell's out there for like 2 snaps and doesn't get a target. And we only have 4 total players receiving 100% of the targets on this team. And if the Eagles find themselves down at any point, which is entirely possible when you're playing Mahomes and Andy Reid in the Super Bowl, right? What if we just see an outcome where it's not necessarily that KC is going off, right? But maybe the Eagles just struggle on the first 2 drives. KC puts together a touchdown, a field goal. You find yourself down 10. That's just going to increase the passing play rate overall. And again, if we've got the matchups that we can exploit, not on the outside, on the inside of the field in the slot for tight end, and then 2 dump-off receptions for Saquon Barkley, I don't think it's crazy. I think everyone can hit. I also think if you wanted to go all in, you could just add in the completions for Jalen Hurts or pass attempts, either one you want to do. But I will say I added that in, and because the sites know this, they know that it's more likely that Hurts is going to hit his completions. You don't really get any sort of added benefit, so I'm not adding that into the one I'm going to show you here, but if you wanted to, you could. So that's what's in the Eagles side. How about Kansas City? Overall, the Chiefs side is pretty gross, honestly. It's not that I think their team is going to play poorly. It's that 9 different players have received a target this postseason. Total target counts on Kansas City are Xavier Worthy, 13, Kelsey, 12, Marquise Brown, 7, Juju with 4, Noah Gray, Hopkins, and Pacheco all with 3, Kareem Hunt, and Samaje Perine with 2. So you've got Kelsey, you've got Worthy at the top, but even those 2 are only seeing 6 and 6.5 targets per game. Everyone else is getting 1 to 3 targets per game. So you combine that with an Eagles defense that ranks 2nd in EPA per pass allowed, 1st in passing yards per game allowed, has by far the fewest passing yards per play allowed. I'm not saying that the Eagles are going to just completely shut down the Chiefs because, again, we know how good the combination of Mahomes and Andy Reid is, but Mahomes has hit 300 passing yards in 2 of 18 games this season, and he's been held under 246 yards in exactly half of his games. So against the number 1 pass defense in the NFL, I lean towards taking lower on 256.5 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes. I do think this is probably my lowest confidence pick we'll go over in this video. So if you can't take yourself to take lower on a Patrick Mahomes projection, I get it. But I think on average, he does go lower than that projection. But yeah, the Eagles defense is just so good. And Mahomes just hasn't been that high of a volume passer this season. Like I said, to start the video, I don't think they're going to open up being overly aggressive this week. They know that the Eagles are good. They know the Eagles can really just limit drives. I mean, if the Eagles get up in this game, you could easily see a couple 7, 8, 9-minute drives. KC knows this. They're not just going to start chucking the ball deep downfield. I think both teams are going to play close to the vest. They're going to play really close to the line of scrimmage, not take too many chances. That's going to hurt the ceiling for passing for Patrick Mahomes. Final pick is also on the KC side, also a lower Kareem Hunt, lower than 56.5 total yards. Eagles have the 5th best run defense in the league, both by my numbers and fantasy points numbers. They also have the 2nd worst schedule adjusted matchup for running back efficiency. I do think they're going to start the game trying to get Kareem Hunt going, but I don't think they're going to have a lot of success in doing that. And just given how inefficient Kareem Hunt has been in general, given also how unlikely it is that he breaks off a long run, right? The Eagles are good at limiting long runs. They're good at just limiting overall efficiency to running backs. But Kareem Hunt also runs like 2 miles an hour. So he gets there based off a lot of 4 and 5 yard runs. There's just no way he gets into the open field and has a 15, 20 yard run, right? That's just not going to happen for Kareem Hunt. So he needs extreme volume. And I just don't see him getting extreme volume in this matchup. And especially he needs to get it all done on the ground because he has 2 total targets in the entire postseason. So he's not going to get it through the receiving game. So he's going to need to have probably over 50 rushing yards. I just don't think that's going to happen. So I would take lower on 56.5 total yards for Kareem Hunt. So those are my favorite picks this week. Also have a giveaway involving 4 of them. So you guys know when I have 4 picks in an entry on Underdog, I love taking insurance. So I'm taking Dallas Goedert, higher than 4.5 receptions. Devonta Smith, higher than 4.5 receptions. Saquon Barkley, higher than 1.5 receptions, and then Kareem Hunt, lower than 56.5 total yards. If at least 3 of those 4 hit, I'm giving away $150 to a random person who likes and reposts my tweet about that. So I'll link that in the description box down below if you want to tail, or if you just want some added EV by liking and retweeting it. If it hits, you can still get a payoff. Again, only 3 of the 4 need to hit. Again, link in the description box down below. Also, remember the promos going on Underdog. Everyone gets that no sweat pick, but also if you sign up this week using promo code FFA, you'll not only get a deposit bonus up to $1,000, but you'll get the Travis Kelce free square, along with access to my draft and in-season rankings for the 2025 fantasy football season. Pretty good deal. Make sure you take advantage. And if you can't, you already signed up for Underdog. Now through the Super Bowl, 25% off. Once the Super Bowl happens, the following day, my site will not be 25% off. So if you've not signed up yet, do so now. So that'll do it for this one. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you are new here. I'll see you all next week to review my must-draft wide receivers list from last season.